Hello, my name is MooingCat and welcome back to the beta server where, unlike what I do most weeks, I will not do a beta recap this week. I will instead showcase the brand new tutorial because it has now been released on the beta server. There hasn't been any announcement, but it has been released, it has been added. I don't know if it's being A/B tested or if all new players on beta gets it, but when I checked it out, I did indeed get the new tutorial, so I recorded it, and in this video I would like to go through it, show what is new, because there are quite a few new things, and give some of my thoughts on it. Now, this video, as I mentioned, will replace my beta recap this week. That's also partly because not really a lot happened this week on beta. Perhaps one highlight that I can mention here, and then I'll cover the rest next week, is that or a bit earlier this week or in previous weeks, there was a newsletter sent to the royalty program, whatever that is. I still don't know how you get into it, but I think it's something with how long you've played on beta or how much you've spent or something like that. But they do send this newsletter out to some people, and in that they mentioned that the Guild Expedition level 5 will start next year. So it probably then won't start in December on beta. We might still get new stuff, new spoilers, but yeah, we will have to wait until next year before we actually get to play it ourselves. Anyways, that's the main thing from beta. Now let's move on to the tutorial itself. So as mentioned, I recorded this earlier, so I will go through this video that I prepared here and kind of give some comments as we go along. So first thing we can notice is that we have kind of an updated look here, a visual with the tutorial information down in the bottom here. I quite like the visuals of it. Not a big deal, of course, but yeah, I like it. And don't worry, it might be a bit small now, the text. I do zoom in a moment, so later on the text will be a bit bigger. So yeah, greetings, Tribal Chief. I am Bert, the spokesman of your population. This is an ideal place to create our empire, so let's start. Another thing you probably notice is that the initial layout here is different, but I'll get back to that a bit later on. There's some really big stuff there. The population is just as essential to develop a powerful civilization as resources, so it kind of gives you an intro to what all of this means. We erect new buildings. Some of these assets might be familiar if you have been paying attention to my beta recaps, or if you have paid attention to the spoiler section. All of these assets here, assets we have found, or that we found months ago now actually. So yeah, we help gather, produce and farm different resources, talking about the population, and we always strive to improve, invest in and research new technologies. So yeah, kind of just going through the basics. Let us build a hunter. This will provide us with a good place to produce supplies regularly. So once again, I'm just explaining different area of the supply buildings, more or less the same as the old system, just a slightly different placement, of course. Each building needs to be built up. Look at how fast the hunter goes. It does indeed go quite fast early on. We now should produce and collect our first supplies. So again, pretty much the same as the old system of producing or showing you how to produce supplies. So that's nothing wrong with that. Quite all right there. We can increase the production of supplies with better buildings. Let's see how we can improve the city. Once again, it explains how the technologies work, and I do think they probably tell it or explain it a few too many times, but better to hammer it in, I suppose. Anyways, resources are vital for our empire's growth. Let's see how we can use them to develop the city. Technology is also a key element for a thriving empire. Let's take a look. So, introduces us to the research menu, shows how you navigate it, which is quite nice with the updated visuals here. We need forge points. Explains that you get a forge point every hour, which is nice. Let's unlock our first technology, which is also very nice. Reaching the Bronze Age, and here we go, Bronze Age. Still get the same reward. Interestingly, we have some great buildings here. Once again, I will get back to that a little bit later on. But yeah, might not be the best thing to show there. Anyways, the people are so happy at our progress, they worked on a free upgrade for our town hall. I suppose it's nice they show that. Not something I've really thought about, that the town hall upgrades automatically. It's just something that's always been the case. I haven't really put any thought at it at all. But yeah, anyways. We entered the Bronze Age. I feel we should build something to celebrate. So yeah, now we start building, and here I zoom in a bit. So now we start building some Bronze Age building. First of all, the residential building, the stilt house. Let's place that down in the designated area. Let's see how the first Bronze Age building is built up. Very exciting indeed. Not really. Anyways, well, how about that? Better residential buildings can give more people a good home and increase population. I think it's nice that they explain how population is tied to houses. With more houses and better houses, you get more population. I think it makes sense to explain that. Not sure. They did explain it in the old system as well, but I think it's clearer here. Each of the residential buildings in the city automatically produces coins as well. That's nice to know for a new player. But yeah, now we can collect. So now they've gone through supplies and first building and houses, residential buildings. That's nice. Once again, goes through technologies. As some technologies allows us to build better buildings, we should go back to research. And yeah, each technology gives us benefits, such as better production buildings. Let's research one of them, the pottery. So yeah, once again, explaining how research works and how you can improve buildings by unlocking them. It is probably good that they hammer it in, that this is how things work, and it's definitely a theme, recurring theme for this. So yeah, now let's build the pottery. There we go. I think it has a lower build time. That's something that we will see later on as well. The build time for it was, what, 5 seconds, and I believe it was like 20 minutes before, if I'm not mistaken. So they definitely sped things up a bit early on, which I think is quite alright. Would you look at that, Chief? If we keep researching and build better buildings, there is no stopping us. Indeed. Now we are introduced to the quests. Seems we chose the right chief for our city. I will keep you informed at the current tasks here. Not sure why they use the word task, because they are quests. It's pretty much the same thing, but should use quests there instead of tasks. But yeah, so now we are introduced to the story quest, and this is also different early on, been updated from the old ones. At some point we will catch up to the old story quests, but for now it's brand new. So here, our city is growing. When the production keeps running, we can build more buildings. So it kind of explains how more production, you can build more buildings, and so on. So that's nice. And here, collect some coins. So we can now collect again, I suppose, from the stilt house. Collect some coins, that's nice. And with those coins, we get some more supplies, resources from the quests. And here, build another pottery. Now, I'm not going to spoil it quite yet, but see if you can notice something when I place down the pottery here. There's a big difference here from the old system. Let me know in the comments if you noticed it. I will go over it in a moment, but there's a big change there. See if you can notice it. Anyways, here's another big change. Early on with the updated story quests, you actually get a lot more forge points than you did before. Which I think in general is quite a nice idea. It kind of shows you how, or it kind of speeds up the early technologies, which I think is a good thing. Especially if they want to keep people a bit longer. I think letting them go a bit further in technologies before you hit that point of stopping, because you need to wait for the hourly forge points. I think that's a good thing. So only now do we get the first military units. In the old system, we got to the fighting part really quickly. I believe in a minute and a half or 2 minutes, something like that. We're now 4.5 minutes in, and only now do we get here. And I think it's nice that they first went for the buildings and then moved on to fighting. So yeah, let's continue with fighting. You can build, Chief, but can you also defeat our enemies on the battlefield? So here we are now told to research spears, or forced to by the tutorial, In the old system, it was only a suggestion in the story quest, but you didn't actually have to research it yet. So I think this in general is a good update. My name is General Grievous, and I will not only teach you how to train your units for battles, but also how to conquer new lands, allowing our city to expand and earn valuable rewards. So, yeah, I bring mercenaries to help us with our first battle on the campaign map. Now, the battles here are the same, but you will notice that this is something that we speculated on quite some time ago in the spoiler section. The first province is now split into 3 provinces with 1 sectors each. And this first one here, you can see, gives you an expansion, which is interesting. Previously, that expansion came from this province here, but as you'll see in a moment, this one now gives a goods deposit. So they kind of swapped around, giving the expansion first and then the goods deposit. And I think that's a good thing because you don't really need the goods deposit this early on. So I think that's nice. As for the tutorial section, it's pretty much the same as before. I do want to point out some things, but this is the same as before. Shows you how to move your unit. And then the next one moves. Now here, oh, never mind. So first of all, it shows us the bottom bar there, the order of units. That's always nice to know. Then here, your second spear fighter can get cover on a tile with a bush. I'm not sure if that was explained in the last one, but as you can see, if I just play on a bit, the bush here gives the rain bonus to the spear fighter. So I think that's what this is trying to say, but I don't like the way it's phrased here, because it kind of, for a new player, I would interpret this as all units get bonus on brushes, get bonus there. So I don't know, I would perhaps explain it a little bit clearer, that this is dependent on the unit, that some units get bonuses on certain tiles. But it's at least a step in the right direction perhaps, but I do still think a better tutorial for fighting would be nice. Speaking of which, eventually I will make a fighting video, or a fighting 101 video, going through all the basics, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, then it's just completing the fight as it was before. So let's quickly skip through that. Okay. Then we move out, sounds great indeed. And we get immediately back here, as you see. Very good, we won, Chief. Your victory has earned us an expansion for the city. And now, if we continue, you're actually told or forced to use this expansion in this area as well, which it's alright. That's where I would place it anyways, but yeah, you don't have any choice in where to place it. But yeah, choose a highlighted area to place the earned expansion. I think it is nice that they go through this and show it. I would like that they kind of explained a bit more on that it's usually best to have or expand the city in a rectangle or a square, but that's something that I don't cover here. I do in general think that I could go a little bit further in telling people what's good practices as well, and not only show what is possible. I think that's a philosophical thing that they have decided, that they're not going to show what is good, they're just going to show what is possible, and then let the player decide. But I do think a lot of players would benefit if they were handheld a little bit more early on, and if not explained what is good, at least shown what is good. That's something that I'll talk about in a moment when we get to another big change for the new tutorial. So yeah, here build 1 spear fighter barrack, so we're still on the military part, and that's quite nice that shows you how to build the spear fighter barrack. Once again, you can probably notice a bit better here what that thing I mentioned or teased a little bit earlier on with the building. See if you can notice anything special about the building placement. Not going to mention it quite yet, but there is a very big change there. So yeah, train a unit. Let's do that as well. There we go, we have trained a unit. Again, getting forge points from the quest, which is very nice. Bert was right about you, Chief. I'll support you with your armies and help you on the battlefield. Alrighty. Well, what do we have here? A new empire, rising to reach new heights. Perhaps indeed. As you journey through the ages, you will unlock incredible technologies and meet different cultures. Now, I have mentioned it before because we have seen this image before, but can you spot the mistake here? Can you spot the mistake? I'll give you another second. Well, the town hall is industrial, but what age are those roads? What age are those? Particularly those black 2x2 roads. They are, well, they're progressive era roads. You don't have 2x2 roads in industrial, so someone made a mistake here in the tutorial or in this image. Hopefully it is updated because, as I mentioned a bit ago, I do think they at least could do a better job of showing what is good practice. They don't necessarily have to explain, but I don't think the examples they show here should be terrible designs. This is a terrible layout. It's actually possible because of the roads, but even if it was possible, the road use here is terrible, very inefficient. I do think they could do a better job of showing at least what is good practice. They don't necessarily have to explain it, but giving examples of poor layouts, I don't like. And similar here, we will invite you to visit and aid our settlements and in return offer great rewards for you to forge your empire. Here as well, this example layout here, it's a terrible layout. You have a lot of roads, wasted roads here, surrounding this pyramid, roads here connected to these diplomacy buildings and roads surrounding all of these buildings. It's a terrible layout. It's not a big deal, but I think they could show good layouts. Don't show terrible layouts, show good ones. Again, you don't have to explain them, but at least show what's good. Don't use terrible layouts for the examples. Anyways, moving on. There are even more great discoveries, battlefields, and events awaiting you in the future. Who were they? I think we continue to improve our city and research technologies. We will meet them soon enough. And there we go. Now we are through the first part of the tutorial. We're actually the only part right now, at least, of the tutorial. Now everything is moved on to the story quests, and you use those to guide you going forward. But this is the end of the tutorial itself. It lasted 8 minutes in my recording here. I didn't do it as fast as possible, so you can probably get that down a bit. But yeah, it definitely is longer than it was in the past, which for most people, not a big deal at all. In general, I quite like it. But for me personally, for example, when I do my city reviews, I have to go through the tutorial in order to actually visit someone's city. So now, instead of that lasting 2.5, 3 minutes, it's now probably over double that, which sucks a bit for me personally. Not a big deal, but I did want to mention that because there is no way to skip the tutorial, at least for now. That's something that people have been talking about for a long time, that they want the ability to skip the tutorial. But yeah, that doesn't appear to be available. So yeah, there's that. Perhaps we will learn a bit later on. Anyways, let's continue. And let's finally talk about what I have been teasing for a bit now. The Bronze Age buildings don't actually need any roads at all, which is quite interesting. It's a change they made. I'll show it in a moment, but okay, so yeah. So here you can see that I am deleting the roads, but none of the buildings lose their connection. That's right. As I mentioned, none of the buildings in Bronze Age require any roads. This is quite a big change indeed, and I have some mixed thoughts on it. I do actually like the idea of the change. I think it is probably a good thing. And my reasoning for this is that, or one thing, a negative thing about this might be that the game first teaches you one thing, that you don't need any roads, but then when you get to Iron Age, then all of a sudden you do need roads, which beyond Iron Age, everything is the same as before. So that might be quite a big shock for players early on. I definitely understand that, but I think that might actually be a good thing. I think by first showing you one thing and then forcing you later on to change up how you play, I think that's a good mindset to have. You can't be forced to relearn things, because every now and then you are forced to kind of relearn how you play. You shouldn't be stuck in the past on how you've always done things. So I think it's a good mindset, I think, to teach players that you shouldn't be, or things shouldn't be set in stone. It's okay to change things or change layouts and so on. And by first introducing roads in Iron Age, I think it kind of forces the players then to kind of relearn the game a bit. And I think that's a good, skill to learn. So I do actually think it is a good thing, but it depends a bit on how it is implemented. Because as you could see earlier on, the initial default layout, it used roads, which if you don't need any roads in Bronze Age, why would you show the roads there? That's something that I'm a little bit worried about, because if I were to implement this, what I would do is that when you reach Iron Age, I would have a second part of the tutorial explaining that from now on, you actually do need roads. That might still be the case. I haven't reached Iron Age yet, so we don't know. I definitely will continue playing, and when I get there, I will report back. But if there isn't any information there about needing roads, then I think it might be a bit confusing. And I wonder if there might not be any information, and that's why they have the roads in the default layout. To kind of still show players that you do still need the roads, or that roads are still a thing, but you don't need them this early on. So, I don't know, I'm a bit worried, and also, nowhere in the tutorial did they actually explain that you don't need any roads in Bronze Age. Which, I don't know, they're sending mixed signals there. They show in the layout that the roads are a thing, that you kind of need them, but you don't actually need them, as you can see here. So I think in theory it's a good thing, but I am a bit skeptical of the implementation of it. Hopefully that changes a bit, and hopefully, as I mentioned, there will be a second part in Iron Age, a second part of the tutorial kind of explaining now you do need roads. But yeah, that's something that we will have to see going forward, if that is the case or not. Alright, so as you could see there, I was continuing a bit on story quests, and as you could see, quite a few of the story quests early on give you forge points, which is quite interesting. I speed it up a little bit. So it's quite interesting that they give you forge points, and I quite like that change as well, because it allows you to get a bit further early on. So here you can see that the quest there, among a few other quests, gave you a forge point. Here again you get some forge points by paying some coins from the story for the story quest. And with these forge points, you are now able to unlock the next technology. Or first you have to build a few more stilt houses. Let me just skip ahead, and then you get the forge points and tells you to research construction. So in the story quest, you get those forge points. You also get a lot more resources back, which is also nice and definitely needed. And yeah, that allows you to research a few more technologies early on. Also, I believe the stone circle has a lower construction time. A lot of buildings have a lower construction time this early on, which is nice, I think. Get another spear fighter barrack. I think you only need one in the old tutorial, which I think it's nice that they show you need two, because yeah, in general, I would recommend having at least two of them this early on, because you definitely need that for efficient fighting. So I think that's a good thing. Here, yeah, scout the next province, which I had already done. So you can see that what was the first province is now split into 3. So yeah, I just continued fighting here. Did the second one as well. Yet another easy fight. Let's just skip through it. And then after that, we can continue scouting the one above that. Takes a minute. So yeah, once again, you get more forge points. Pay coins for even more forge points. And with these forge points, once again, we are able to research one more technology. This time, another expansion, which, yeah, quite nice. So yeah, unlock that. As you can see, when you build that, you get even more forge points that you can use to unlock even more technologies. So let's just quickly collect, and then, yeah, once again, forge points. Research the next building, which is the chalet. So yeah, research those. And I'm very low on coins now, but again, as you can see in the quests here, get a lot of resources back, so I am still able to continue. And in general, they have balanced that quite well, that you always have enough resources to move on to the next part, at least for this early stage. Now this quest I really like. Sell 2 huts. Huts are residential buildings from the previous age. I think this is a very nice thing, kind of explaining to players that deleting a building or deleting old buildings to replace them with new buildings is a good thing. You shouldn't be stuck in the past. You shouldn't keep onto buildings for longer than you need to. So here, being forced to sell some buildings, I think that's a good thing. Kind of shows the players that selling buildings is perfectly fine, a normal part of the game. So I like that is added here to the tutorial. We see it a few more times in these quests here. So yeah, now build these 2 chalets here. And once again, these have very low production or construction time, 1 minute. I'm pretty sure it was higher before, so a lot of the early buildings have lower production times. Lower construction times, but also, I forgot to mention it, they also have lower production times. So the huts, for example, instead of 5-minute productions, they have 1 minute and 30-second production, and the stilt houses, there we go. So the stilt houses here, these have 5-minute productions instead of 15-minute productions. So some of these early buildings here have lower productions, or shorter productions. They give less coins as well. So I think the coin production is probably roughly the same as before, but you get more often, which I actually think is a alright thing early on. Because yeah, for the first hour or so, you are active all the time. So collecting more often, I think it's a good thing. All right, so yeah, I then continued fighting a bit. Let's just skip through the fight. Not really interesting to see here. Very easy to win these fights early on with spare fighters. You might lose some, but that's no problem. So yeah, fighting that. Once again, I'm getting more forge points so that I'm able, once again, to research more building. This time it's the slingshot. So yeah, let's put those on and then research. Yeah, slingshots. Now, interestingly, in some of my, or in my strategies or recommendation on how to start a new world, which I guess will be outdated with this new tutorial, I basically recommend after getting these 2 technologies, you get cultivation, thatched houses, and then smithery. So these 3 here, which you still can, but yeah, the tutorial here kind of forces you to unlock these. But because you get those forge points back again, I still think you should follow the technologies here. So yeah, build a slinger, and once again you get some more forge points for doing so. And in the slinger, recruit units. Yeah, I'm skipping ahead a little bit, as you can see. Skipping through the boring parts. So yeah, here again, 2 forge points. And in a spare fighter barrack, unlock 2 unit slots for some more forge points. I had actually unlocked all slots in both buildings, so yeah, I had to build yet another spare fighter barrack, but because of all the resources I was getting back from the story quests, that was perfectly fine and actually helped me out quite a bit later on the continent map, so not too worried about that. So yeah, then after recruiting some units there, got yet more forge points, and once again, research the next one. Here we have cultivation. And interestingly, previously you unlocked story events when you unlocked this. Now instead, can't see it right here, but events have now been moved to the Iron Age, to the first technology of the Iron Age up here. So you can no longer play events in Bronze Age, which in general I actually think is an alright thing. It might suck for some players that want for some reason to stay in Bronze Age. I have heard there are a few of those, but in general I don't mind this. I think what they're kind of doing here, it seems like, or halfway doing, is they're kind of making the Bronze Age into a tutorial age, and then the Iron Age the first real age. So I don't mind that the event has been shifted to the Iron Age. So yeah. Once again, get quite a decent amount of resources. Here, build a few more chalets, which they probably imagine that you need in order to build 2 fruit farms, which you need in a moment. So let's build 3 more of these. Go. Sorry. So yeah, after that, get some more resources. Here, sell 1 hunter. So once again, it tells you to sell an old building, explaining basically that it's no longer good. You have better buildings now, so you should delete it and replace it with other buildings. So again, I really like the idea here in the tutorial / early story quest here to explain that it's okay to delete buildings. You should delete older buildings when you can replace them. And once again, you get a lot of resources back here, which are needed in order to build the fruit farms. Once again, sell 4 huts. A nice reminder that you can sell old buildings. Sell 4 more of those, get a lot more resources, and then here have 2 fruit farms, which is very nice. I had enough for one. I was missing 100 or so coins for the next one. I did build 1 extra pottery and 1 extra spearfighter barracks, so if I hadn't, I imagine I would have enough coins right now to unlock it. So yeah, it looks like they have thought through the balancing here of the quest or the rewards, so that you do get back what is required to actually build the buildings that they ask for, at least early on. So kind of speed things up early on, which I think is nice. So yeah, while I was waiting to collect the remaining coins, I did a fight here, collected some coins, and then I'm still missing 8, so if you move ahead, so then I had enough, and yeah, built the second one, once again getting some more forge coins back. Here, interesting quest, start 15-minute productions 2 times in the fruit farm, which you have now built 2 of, and same for the pottery, which you built 2 of previously. Oh, and by the way, the construction time of the fruit farm is now 1 minute. I believe it was something like 1 hour and 40 minutes, or perhaps it was simply 40 minutes before. But now it's only 1 minute, which I think is quite a nice thing early on. Again, speeds up the early game, which in general I think is a nice thing. So yeah. So now, start 15-minute productions, and here's kind of the first weight of the early game. So after those 15 minutes, while that was running, I did some more rebuilding of the city, built some more buildings. So yeah, collecting that, getting some more forge points. And here we get the side quests. Those were also unlocked by, I believe they were unlocked as well by the same quest previously. In fact, the side quests here, I believe they are the same as the old system. Have a fruit farm here, I believe that's the first side quest you had previously as well. The next one here to produce some cabbages. I'm pretty sure this is exactly the same. So as far as I can tell, there's nothing new when it comes to these side quests. So you can simply complete those you want to, skip the rest, and get to recurring quests as soon as possible. So yeah, I continued with the story quest to win or conquer the remaining sectors of Fell, I believe it was. So let's just skip through that, don't have to see that. So yeah, I got through that, got some more forge points again, some more coins. And here, the last leader, Scout Northern Province. This is where, at least for now, the story quests join the old story quests. So from now on, all the story quests are the same as the old story quests. I don't know if there are some differences later on or not. As I mentioned, I haven't reached Iron Age, for example, yet, so when I do, I will see if there are some differences. But for now, at least, you join the old story quests, so now you've kind of gone through all the stuff that is new, at least in this part of the tutorial. Interestingly, I did mention it a bit earlier, but great buildings. So, we have actually skipped the story quests to build the Oracle. That we no longer have it yet, at least. So I wonder if that might be shifted to the Iron Age. Because right now, as I mentioned, we are back to the story quests we knew from before. But we have skipped the Oracle one. So I'm not sure if that will slot in somewhere else in Bronze Age, or if it'll wait until you get to the Iron Age. With the fact that the events have been shifted to the Iron Age and that the technology to unlock the ability to contribute to great buildings has always been locked behind Iron Age, I wouldn't be surprised if you don't get that storyline or a similar storyline until you get to Iron Age. So you probably no longer can build any great buildings in Bronze Age, which I think that's perfectly fine. One downside, if we skip ahead a little bit, so one downside of that, I'll just let this play while I talk a little bit because we've gone through all the new stuff. But the downside of that is that we no longer get those 20 forge points from the quests that will allow us to speed up the technologies. But those forward points have kind of already been shifted over to to the standard story quest, and so you still are able to progress, if not as far, at least do as many technologies as you could in the past. Because right now we haven't unlocked guilds, for example, yet, but we have unlocked equally as many technologies as if you would spend those 20 forge points you get. And in a much shorter time frame, because the fruit farms, as I mentioned, takes time to produce on in the old system. Right now, I'm about 45 or so minutes in, I think, on the new tutorial. And at this stage, I definitely wouldn't have gotten so far in the old system. So things have been sped up quite a bit. All right, so while I let this play, let me give some of my initial thoughts. Let me speed it up a little bit, because from now on, I don't think there's anything too unique to talk about. So let me give you some of my initial thoughts, and let me run through all the changes while doing so. So, first of all, I mentioned it a bit in the beginning, but as you have seen, we have some new graphics when it comes to the tutorial, a new style of the tutorial pop-ups and all of that. In general, I quite like those. Not a big deal, of course, but I do enjoy, or I do like the changes, I think. So yeah, here you can see me going through aborting until I get to the recurring quests, but that's nothing new. The second new change is that the tutorial is quite a lot longer than it was before. In general, I think that's a good thing. Of course, for me personally, as I mentioned, for my city reviews and stuff, it's a bit slower, which is a shame, but I think for new players, having a longer tutorial, I think that's a good thing. It's still only 7-8 minutes long, which is not that that long, so I think that's good. Then probably the biggest difference is that roads are no longer required. I did go over it earlier, and my main thoughts is that I like the idea of it. I think it's a good idea in theory. I'm not a big fan of the implementation. I think they could explain it better up front. The initial layout shouldn't have any roads, I believe, for the Bronze Age, and I think they should, not sure if they will, but I think they should have a second part of the tutorial when you reach the Iron Age. All right. The next thing is that some of the buildings have shorter collection times. Some of the buildings also have shorter construction times. So in general, speeding up the early game a bit, and I think that's a nice thing, a good thing. Yeah, I think it. Okay, so there is one downside, and that is that it might be a bit of a shock for players to get a lot of new stuff early on and then be forced to stop, take a break. So they probably could do a better job of smoothing out that difference. But in general, I do think that speeding up the early game is a good thing. It probably will make more players keep playing, I think, which is probably their main goal with this new tutorial. But yeah, I do think it's a good thing, and I also think with some of the other changes, it explains things a bit better, or how things work. Still plenty of things that can be changed, but I think in general, a good thing. All right, the next big change is that you get a lot of forge points early on from story quests. You also get more resources early on, and it seems to be more balanced, so that you always have the necessary resources to get through the initial story quests. So in general, I think that's quite a nice change, that they've done it quite well, I think. Smoothing out the initial beginning and allowing you to progress faster, I think is a good thing. Again, there might be some issue with kind of I don't know, kind of being a big change from progressing fast to then all of a sudden stopping when the initial period of getting forge points has ended. Because as I mentioned, right now I have gone back to the old story quests, which don't give any forge points. But yeah, in general, I think it's a good thing. Another big change is that we have no more Oracle story quest, at least this early on. Again, it might come later on, but for now at least, it's not available, which is interesting to say the least. That does mean that kind of the, I don't know, cheese strategy of not spending those forge points on the Oracle, but instead on research, that is no longer possible. So that might slow down, or it does slow down the time it takes to get to guilds, for example. But it doesn't really slow down the time it takes to get to to Iron Age by that much. So overall, of course, I will have to see exactly how it is implemented later on. But in general, I think it's all right to move Great Buildings entirely over to Iron Age, if that is indeed the case. Another thing that has been moved over to Iron Age is events, which again, it does suck, I think, for a few players, very few, but in general, I do think it's good. I do think it's good to allow players to have a little bit more time to get used to the game before they move in. They should still be able to, if they want to at least, get to an event regardless of when they start. Shouldn't take that much longer. So yeah, I think it's nice to allow players to develop a little bit better, a little bit more before they get to it, because some of the quests can be quite challenging early on. So I think it's in general quite a good thing. So yeah, and then the final thing that I kind of mentioned is that I really do hope that when I get to Iron Age, which I will probably do in a few days, and I will record it when I do, I really hope there is a second part of the tutorial that goes through the new stuff of now you do need roads, which is a big thing. I really hope that they explain that and explain it well, because otherwise it might be quite confusing moving up. And also I do hope there is some tutorial stuff on Great Buildings, because I really do think they can benefit from explaining more what Great Buildings do, how they work, what they are, and so on. And also events, I suppose, when that is unlocked, kind of explain how they work a bit more as well, I think would be nice. So yeah, there we go. That's the initial part of the new tutorial. I know this has been quite a long video, but hopefully you did find this interesting. I will, of course, keep paying attention to these changes as they are made. I am sure there might be some changes or updates to this tutorial, or to the tutorial, based on their initial testing on beta. Again, this is beta, so nothing of this is official yet, or it's official, but nothing is set in stone. Things can change moving forward. So yeah, who knows what will or will not change going forward. All right, so that's more or less it for this video. Before I end, let me thank my Patreons for their support. I would like to thank Comstar, Fort Pufek, Lorden, Vokonobin, Kim Cayley, Rolf the 8th, PQ the Goat, Dan Suminat, JT, The Rev, Derek B, Hugo Count von Count, Jon Fredriksen, Judith Generous, Hilda, Susan Weiss, Megarock, Rocco, Merton Nemris, Henrik der Klerberg, Mattia, Obshitty Obsessed, Raph, Atarel, Mike, Wolfboy, Atomic, and Flavius Belisarius. Thanks a lot for watching, take care, and I will see you in the future.